Hello, friends. Well, this is it, finally, the end of 2020. And I don't know about you, but as I look back at the year we are just completing now, I am almost overwhelmed by the number of large changes and deeply transformative events that we have just lived through and are living through still. And so as I approach this cusp of the new year, I'm thinking about the Roman god Janus, who was the god of arrivals and departures, naming that they belong together, both of them. And Janus was a god who had one face facing in one direction, could say forward, and one face at what would be the back of our head facing backward. Often carved over the gates of the Roman cities. One would be looking into the city and one would be looking out, naming the importance as we move forward in time of also looking back toward where we've been so that we can better understand where we are on the cusp of any day. And this backward looking, forward looking practice is something that many people do on New Year's Eve. And yet sometimes we're tempted to just look forward, especially after a year like this, like 2020. But I want to encourage you to take some time to just name some of the significant events and passages that you have experienced. We know that all of us collectively have been through a transformative year, but sometimes it becomes a blur when there's that much change going on. So to step back and sit down and just think and name 5 to at most 10 significant days or events that you experienced in the year just closing now. They may be ones that others shared as well, like the day of George Floyd's murder, or they may be ones that nobody but you experienced. Just make a list of 5 to 10 of them, and then you can do different things with this. I want to share one of them that a friend of mine, Georgia Greeley, who's a book artist, introduced me to. She made this beautiful handmade book. And on the cover, when you open it up, is something called a primstar. If you can see that image, that is a primstar, which the people in the 1100s in Norway would use to mark the days. And you can see there are symbols all along what looks like a ruler, and then little hashtags. The hashtags are the ordinary days. The ones with the symbols are what the Norwegians called Mørkesdager. And those were the marked days, the days that people were meant to remember because of a big historical event or because of a seasonal, cyclical happening. The marked days were often remembered in stories, but these simple symbols gave people a way to remember what happened when, so that they could mark them as they lived forward, knowing that we carry our past with us, and how we process it and name it determines the choices we will have in the days to come. So you can make your own primstav for this year, 2020. Georgia and I did this with a group of people a few years ago, and each of us in the group made our own primstav. This was mine, marking a particularly difficult year when my father died and I had cancer, and I just wanted to remember what was the timeline of that challenging year. And then on the back, I wrote some passages and collected some poems. You too can make a primstav of 2020 as a way of making sense of this incredibly, sometimes overwhelmingly senseless year. That's one thing you can do. An easier method might be something that we've done in my family for a number of years. Every year on New Year's Eve, we take, my husband David and I take 2 sheets of paper and we write the year closing and the year to come on it. And then we take turns. We take a pencil, because it's always nice to be able to erase. We take a pencil and we make drawings of things we remember. And we just go back and forth. So we take the year just closing first, and we draw simple little pictures about what we remember happening. And they're just, you can see they're the very simple sketches. And it's fun. We do it back and forth. Some of them are joyful and some of them are deep losses. But we just sketch them as a way of remembering. And then we move on to the year to come. And we draw fewer sketches, but sketches of things we anticipate for the year ahead. We keep these year after year. And so after we've done the current year that's closed and the year to come, then we take out the file and we look at years past. And we look at what we expected for the year just ended last year. And it's a beautiful way to recall, to notice how some things that we expected never came to pass and how others we had never thought of were right there front and center. So that can be a little less linear and more visual fashion. However you mark the days of this year, and whether you do it today or tonight or in the days to come, I hope you'll take some time to pause on the threshold that is closing out 2020 and to reflect on what are the big events, big as you define big, that occurred in your experience, and how might you map them across this extraordinary year. And then turn your focus forward, like Janus, looking out of new eyes toward the year ahead, and name some wishes, some hopes, some expectations, knowing not all of them will be fulfilled, and there will be things never expected that will come. And let that honor the cusp of this year, the closing of a difficult year behind us, and the opening of something new as yet unknown. Blessings to you on this New Year's Eve. Be steady, be strong, be faithful to your own wisdom.